I'm an adopted twin, and my sister and I were adopted really at childbirth. And so why was it the day that my mom tripped over the terrier Shotzi when I was 3 months old? It was me and not my sister, but threw me across the kitchen floor and I hit the refrigerator. And so things went wrong immediately, and I was immediately taken to the emergency room, and last rites were performed. But it wasn't my time. It wasn't where I was called to be. And so surgery was performed, and I have the scars on either side of my head, still today, so you always see me with long hair, and basically to relieve the pressure. At that point in time, I finally got sent home with a neurologist that my mom connected with, and I was given a life on phenobarbital. That's what was prescribed. But evidently, I was impacted by that medication over time, and so a decision was made between my mom and the neurologist, my parents, to actually pull me off that medication. So that was the start of my journey. However, something happened about 14, maybe 15 years ago. I started having dream sequences where I would focus on some thought, some dream that I would recognize, but I couldn't ever say, I couldn't ever come back and tell you what that dream was. What was that aura? What was it? I was so frustrated. Was it my latest creative way of handling stress as the type A guy that I am? What was I thinking? Was it my id taking charge? I couldn't ever release it, and I was so frustrated with it. After months of talking about it, I was finally advised to visit a neurologist who immediately wanted to put me on medication. This was July of 2007. The EEG, of course, came out clean. And what did he want me to do? He wanted to put me on Depakote. Well, I said, well, let me look that up. Migraines? No. Epilepsy? Oh, no. Bipolar? Well, possibly, but prove it. Let's prove it. And so I agreed to be placed in the hospital overnight, where they wired me up and I looked like the mummy. And I was scared to death, but I actually had 2 seizures that night. And I can remember being on the video and waking up, having a seizure and smiling, waving, it's like, it's here, what is it? And I got sent home the next morning with a piece of paper that said, go take phenobarbital, by a doctor that I never met. And so I said, well, that's not working. So I quickly learned that I was struggling with both focal seizures, simple partial seizures, as well as focal impaired seizures, complex partial seizures, before medication. And this really started my own refractory epilepsy journey. And I'm one of the 30% of us that continue to have fought that good fight. During this process, I was counting seizures daily and having between 25 to 80 a month. On medications, I would stop counting at 10. And I kept a little notepad next to the bed at night and said, it was 0, or maybe it was 10 because it was a bad day. So at that time, my wife and I really began looking for the right doctor, right medication, and possibility of surgery, and if so, what type. It took time to find the right doctor. When I wanted to change medications because Depakote was just torture for me, I have a good friend that I've worked with that Depakote has worked great. For me, I just hated how I felt. I was just a zombie on Depakote, and I was trying to help run a national Big 4 accounting firm practice, national advisory service, and it just wasn't working. So I got referred to an epilepsy center, and that doctor would have me point my nose and walk a straight line. And I would say, well, wait a minute, here's my notepad. I want to talk about these issues. It's critical to me. Let me have some control of the agenda. Wouldn't happen. Medication got changed, but I was still suffering from refractory seizures. So it took time to find the right doctor, and I happened to have found Dr. Heck, who's going to be speaking next, even though we weren't connected before. It'd be great you'll get to hear from her. So next, we fought the good fight on medications. At one point, I was taking 4. And you know the percentage of people that get control of epilepsy or control of seizures when they're on 4 different medications is really small. It didn't work for me. So my baseline was finally oxcarbazepine and Vimpat. Lorazepam if I was having a chain of auras under the tongue. That was such a great relief to me to be given that possibility. I spent a long time looking at the possibility of surgery, particularly to see if I could be an early adopter of laser surgery. And at that time, it was pretty rare because laser surgery was really being directed at kids more than adults. But I attended national meetings trying to see if I could find that as a direction. One of the things I was told, by the way, at my initial epilepsy center is I was too old for surgery. Unfortunately, I learned that I was not. So working with the doctors, proceeded through the process of multiple MRIs, a PET scan, and the infamous WADA. Got a WADA question? I'd be happy to answer it later in the day. So it was a huge decision to trust the doctor, as I was the income provider for my household, and I'm still amazed by the support I received from my wife and my family. So I entered for surgery the hospital May 14th, 2013, 5 years ago. 30 electrodes were placed in my left hemisphere that day. I sat in the hospital being monitored for a full week. You hear a lot of stories where people don't have seizures when they're in the hospital. Not me, I'm pretty good at it. I had 33 that week, including 20 on May 19th, 2013, a day I won't ever forget. 2 days later, a left temporal lobectomy and a hippocampectomy. And the hippocampus is still in storage at USC. The evidence is still there. I understand I can go see it. So I'm here today because it was a life-changing event. I've had 0 seizures the last 4.5 years. Thank you. After a year, I came off of Vimpat. My oxcarbazepine has been reduced from 600 milligrams twice a day to 150 twice a day. I provide that to you because I no longer require 8.5 hours of sleep each night. A couple of nights ago, I stayed up till 11 because I was watching the Olympics. I no longer feel groggy trying to help run a national consulting practice. Most importantly, I no longer feel branded by epilepsy. I no longer see it labeled across my forehead and running my identity.